Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Anderson. Welcome to my informative presentation for SPK 201. This informative presentation is going to be on the topic of ultrasound machines. The reason I chose ultrasound machines for this presentation is for two things. Number one, my best friend recently started at LCC and she is in the ultrasound technician program. She's very excited about what she's learning and learning how to use the machines. We talk a lot, so I wanted to know more about what she was going to be doing and how her day-to-day work was going to be. So that really kicked up my curiosity about ultrasound machines. Secondly, my brother and his wife are expecting their first child in September, and they recently had an ultrasound appointment where they got to come home with an image of the fetus, and we got to find out the gender. So that really got me interested in finding out more about what went on behind the scenes of the ultrasound machine up until the development of that image of my unborn niece. So this presentation is going to cover three things. We're going to talk about the parts of the ultrasound machine and essentially how they work, a little bit of background on the ultrasound, and finally what role it plays in the medical field today. Let's get started with the background on the ultrasound machine. Throughout medical history, it's always been an issue to figure out what's going on inside the human body while doing minimal damage to it. That wasn't always easy. Usually it would involve invasive surgeries, and any kind of cut to the human skin exposes other risks such as infection or bleeding and all sorts of other consequences. Based on this need, the ultrasound machine was developed in the mid-1950s. It was invented by obstetrician Ian Donald and engineer Tom Brown. They developed the first working prototype in 1956, and it was used clinically in Glasgow there for the first time on an expectant mother, and it was used to develop an image of the fetus. So what inspired the development of the ultrasound machine? The technology of an ultrasound machine is very similar to that of sonar machines. Sonar has been used to detect images underwater, such as boats, submarines, or missiles. Sonar works by sending sound waves down to the water, and when they're reflected off an object, the sonar machine can detect what's there based on the reflections. The concept of an ultrasound machine is very, very similar. It's just like the echoing technique used by animals such as bats, whales, and even dolphins. Now let's talk about the parts of an ultrasound machine. First, the ultrasound machine has something called a transducer probe, and this is the extension of the machine that is actually rubbed physically and makes contact with the human body when an ultrasound is being performed. The transducer probe is filled with something called piezoelectric crystals, and electricity is sent through these crystals, which causes them to vibrate. These vibrating crystals end up producing ultrasound waves, which emit from the transducer probe onto the human tissue that it's touching. The transducer probe also has receivers on it, and it can detect when those ultrasound waves reflect off human tissue and come back to the transducer probe. Depending on how long it takes for those reflections to return, the CPU, or central processing unit of the ultrasound machine, is able to calculate based on the speed of sound and develop a human image of whatever's going on inside the tissue. There's also obviously a display screen, a keyboard, and a mouse for most ultrasound machines. Many of them also have parts called transducer pulse controls, and what these tiny knobs allow the user to do is manipulate various wave properties of the ultrasound waves, such as the amplitude, the frequency, and the duration at which they travel. They can alter these values to fit whatever medical situation they're facing at the time. Next, we're going to talk about what the ultrasound machine is used for in the medical field today. It has many, many important purposes. Most people hear ultrasound machine and think of expectant mothers and how it can be used to determine the gender of an unborn baby, but it can do so many more valuable things than that. For instance, the ultrasound machine can be used to detect blood flow to an organ, such as the heart. It can also be used to detect kidney stones, cysts, and other potential cancerous things inside organs. And the ultrasound probe can also help serve as a visual guide during surgery. It's pretty certain that the ultrasound machine is going to always play a crucial role in the medical field, and there's no proven sign of any damage that's caused by ultrasounds being performed. However, doctors still only tend to do them when it's highly necessary. That's why when people are expecting a baby, they don't do 17 ultrasounds throughout the pregnancy. Typically, it's not good to introduce any high concentration of any kind of energy to the human body that's foreign to it, so they try to only do it when it is absolutely necessary. Thank you. This concludes my presentation on ultrasound machines. I hope you found this both informative and enjoyable.